This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. The devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain. Yeah.
Pull up, turn the volume, let the bass ignite. Devil's advocates, that's the channel. Together we fight. They ain't here to echo what the masses preach. They challenge beliefs, putting truth within reach. Flip the script, reverse the lens, ain't no fear to provoke. Unpopular opinions, watch the stagnant water smoke. They dissect the narrative, poke holes in the facade. Sharpening the mind, ain't no truth they'll disregard.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
See, the description hit hard, that's the blueprint to code. Not everyone likes it, but that's the path they strode. Challenging beliefs, that's the mission, the aim. Flipping tables on conventional, fanning intellectual flame. Stepping opposing view, not for conflicts embrace, but to sharpen the blade of truth. Leave no logical trace of error or bias or thoughts that just float. They dig to the core, let the arguments bloat with substance and reason, not just empty retort. They building up thinkers, a mental fortress of thought.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
You don't go by always being right, that's a stagnant pool. Growth comes from questioning, breaking every rigid rule. Honest conversations, no questions, a few uncomfortable facts. They lay it all bare, no turning back, no looking back. Seeking clarity over debate, either way you win. They push you to understand where your own thoughts begin. So hit that subscribe button, let the knowledge unfurl. The devil's advocates,
Changing your whole world.
yeah, it might make you squirm, but that's how you transcend. Listen to the devil's advocates till the very end.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to know why I'm here today? It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome to tonight's show on the Long Island serial killer. It's going to be all about LISK tonight. Hopefully, we'll give you a moment to get settled in, grab your popcorn, all that stuff. I have Robin backstage. We're going to bring her up in just a minute, but I want to get started and get things off started the right way. Hopefully, I got a sound check from somebody. Let me know that we're good. I know one comes in. He's like, did I miss the live? Dude, you just got here. You could not have missed the live. You are on the live right now. Welcome to everybody. Penny's running late. No, you're not. You're here on time. I literally just got started. There's nobody who's late. In fact, where the hell is everybody else? We need to get everybody else in here because right now we don't have everybody here. But anyways, we're going to get started whether they're here or not. That's too bad. First time subbing Jennifer Collins. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You told me you were going to sub. You did sub. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And Kimberly, welcome to the mods in the house. And Robin, of course, is a mod. She's in the house. One's in the house. Moderator. I've got more moderators than I have other people in the house. So you are in good hands. I guess nothing horrible is going to happen because we got lots of moderators here. So thank you so much for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring Robin on as far as the microphone. Robin, are you there? Can we hear you?
Hello, hello.
Hello. Does everybody get a sound check? Let me know that you hear Robin fine. Robin's going to be a disembodied voice for the time being. At times, we might stickers so that you actually see a thumbnail or something like that, but I think you're going to hear Robin. What is Robin's view in or position in this show right now? She's going to help out with verbal moderation. So when I get long-winded, I will get long-winded tonight. I have so much stuff to cover. I have so many cool announcements. I hope that this spreads. I hope that people watch on the replay because there is huge, huge news coming out. And we're just getting started on Long Island Serial Killer. If you've ever thought that, like, am I late behind? You are not late. This is just getting started. This case is going to be enormous next year, but you are in on the ground stages and it's going to be huge. Now, there are already multiple documentaries out there about Rex Heuermann and the Long Island serial killer case, but I think you're going to hear some ideas from me and others that you aren't going to hear from mainstream media. This is not going to be some mainstream shit. There are some people, some big names who are going to tell you some alternate versions of what's happening in the Long Island serial killer case, and it's going to get nuts. It's going to be batshit. Leah, thank you so much for the super sticker. I appreciate that so much. It helps the show. You're basically helping buy me a coffee at the CrimeCon convention coming up. By the way, I found out today, and I'll maybe explain this later on, my going to the CrimeCon is actually going to miss me a little bit of an opportunity because Rex Heuermann, I believe, has a Fry hearing coming up on his case at the same time CrimeCon's happening. So I'm going to be at a convention listening to speakers, and I won't be watching Rex Heuermann's Fry hearing. So that sucks for me. But you know what? That kind of stuff tends to be on the internet, and I'll be able to get that somehow get there. There have, so like, what does one say? There have been documentaries even on the missing girls before Rex was arrested. Correct. In fact, I'm reviewing a book that was written before Rex was identified, Gone Girls Before Rex was identified. We're going to talk about another series show called The Killing Season before Rex was identified. And that's going to be part of our big, huge news tonight. So pay attention to that. I'm going to cover briefly for some people a little bit about the brief history of Gilgo Beach and how we got to where we are so that you can, if you're not up to speed, you have an idea of what's going on. So, oh, good. Ronnie's like, oh, good. Glad I found your channel. Yes, I am glad you found your channel as well. So I'm hoping that you're not going to hear the same regurgitated stuff that you hear from mainstream media on Gilgo at my channel. So next year is going to be huge, like as he says. So let's talk a little bit about Rex Heuermann. So on screen, let me see if I can pull up adding to the stage and let's see, add to the stage. Oh, before presenting a person, remove other media from your, oh yeah. I got to remove my song that I had going on. Give me a second here. There we go. Got to get my shit together. There we go. Robin and I, now Robin's got a figure, so now she's not completely a disembodied soul. Robin's there in the little side window. So say hi to Robin in the chat. Again, she's been gracious to help me a lot, so I really appreciate your help, Robin. And again, I miss things when I go on rants and tirades. This is my website, devilsadvocates.info. I try to keep it updated every Sunday. I post the schedule for the week, so we've already done this in the bag. We went with Birdie Bombshells. That's in the bag. Birdie and I, oh my gosh, people love Birdie and I when we're together. That is such a huge thing. So when you look at these little measly numbers in the lives here where I'm really struggling, look at this. Like right now we're like at 10 or 11 people here. When I go with Birdie, that's 1,000 plus people, 1,000 compared to the 10 I've got right now. Even Birdie and I don't know why the hell it is when the two of us go together, it's some kind of magic sauce. So whatever the case may be, it's working. We're going to keep doing that. So Tuesday, we've done this in the bag. We talked about Luigi Mangione all day Tuesday. So Monday was all day. We're going to get to the LISK. Trust me. Monday was all day Idaho 4. Tuesday was all day Luigi Mangione. Today, all day Long Island serial killer. With my special today, killer duos, tandems, and parallel killers. Now, you see some individuals here, Rex Heuermann and his wife Asa. You see some unknown individuals in the middle. Maybe it's not unknown to you if you follow people like Murder Meadow Mayhem, which I'm going on live with tomorrow, by the way. And do I ever stop talking or take a breath? Like, I don't know. Anyways, these two individuals we're going to talk about late in the evening tonight as I talk about duos and tandem killers. And then you've got Victoria Heuermann, daughter of Rex Heuermann, and Asa. Asa, I think, as I don't remember if she's the biological. She had children before she met Rex. So anyways, point being is that here's mother-daughter, here's Rex and his wife, and Does this all tie in to killer duos? I mean, let's find out. You're not going to hear this from mainstream media, I'll guarantee you. Now, and then we've got, a possible premiere tomorrow, and then we've got Murder, Metal, Mayhem coming up. So this is kind of a preview of what the week is. And we got A.R. Hayes, A Convict's Thoughts. We're going to talk to him tomorrow about Brian Koberger and how things are hit with him in prison. And then we'll do the After Dark party where I have some drinks, and I have some moderators that are a little over the top. We got some games they want to play that you cannot be sober for. So we'll see how that plays out on Friday. Now, let's get into the shit. So Rex Heuermann is the alleged Long Island serial killer with 10 or 11 bodies to a name. I think officially it's 10 bodies. They believe, I should say they, meaning there are people who believe Rex Heuermann has been killing for 30 years. And while 10 are only attributed to him at this time, maybe 11, Rex Heuermann's body count could be in the hundreds, potentially up in the 300 area, but we're not sure. He could have been killing for 30 years. He could have been killing in multiple cities, but Long Island, it was his dumping ground of choice, according to the official narrative. Now, the question becomes, is Rex Heuermann really the only killer of these bodies? That's where you're going to hear me talk about some different things. I want to point out, before we get to John Ray, I want to point out, let me bring up another asset. I want to talk about, briefly, for those who are not super familiar with this, we're going to add this to stage. This is a picture of Shannan Gilbert. She was the one that started the whole Gilgo 4 investigation. Shannan Gilbert was a sex worker who was working through places like Craigslist and called 911 years ago, and then 40 minutes, I think 20 minutes of like a 911 call, and 40 minutes later when the police finally arrived, she was missing, and it took them months and months to finally find Shannan Gilbert. In the search for Shannan Gilbert, they found a dumping ground in Gilgo Beach where 4 bodies in burlap bags were found, all dumped alongside of the highway or the road there, in a relatively short stretch of road, and that led to the Gilgo Beach, and they realized they had a serial killer in the area. The search went on for Shannan Gilbert for some time. Shannan was found after more bodies were found and more people were attributed. Ultimately, Shannan Gilbert's disappearance and death, when they did find her, she did die, they said was an accident. They said that she had run in fear into the marsh. She had called the 911 call that night saying that somebody was trying to kill her. She says, he's trying to kill me. He's trying to kill me. On the phone, she's running. She's pounding on doors. Nobody would let her in. Everybody's like, fuck it, go away. We'll call the police for you. She didn't want to deal with the police. I think there's a reason why the sex workers don't want to deal with the police. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show as well. So Shannan Gilbert didn't want to wait around for the police to show up. She just wanted help in the immediate because somebody was trying to kill her. She goes into the marsh, disappears, and then they later on said, well, she died of hypothermia because she'd stripped off some clothes, they said, because she wasn't fully dressed. Maybe she got too cold. She got stuck in the mud. She drowned in a marshy area. Whatever the case may be, it was just an accident and officially ruled an accident, not a homicide. Having said that, somebody basically, the family, Mari Gilbert, the mother of Shannan, hires John Ray. Attorney John Ray is essentially a victim's advocate person to come in and find out the true story of what's going on. I can't believe, and this is what I want to talk to John Ray about. And yes, I've got John Ray coming up on an interview very soon. I got John Ray to talk about why it took 4 years for the family to get the 911 call and get all that information. If Shannan Gilbert was just an accidental death and not an active investigation, why the hell would it take years for them to get the 911 call and the transcript and the audio from what happened that night? That's a question I'm going to have for John Ray. And if you have questions for John Ray, by the way, I would recommend you look at my Discord channel. There's a brand new channel called Questions for John Ray. It's a fucking really unique name. I've also got questions for another individual I'm going to talk to you in a minute. So this channel's got big things. John Ray is a world-renowned attorney, and he is a figure of his own, a tour de force. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about John Ray and why you want to get boned up on this case. That's one of the things I want to point. You want to get boned up on this case. I'm going to recommend a couple things for you. I'm going to recommend that you watch, as a primer, if you haven't done so already, the Netflix special Gone Girls. It's a 3-part series. I'll let you know right now, episode 1 was a little dull. I started to watch it and I'm like, man, is this case really for me? Episode 2 came and I about pissed myself. I was rigid with anticipation. I'm like, this is going to be a show, because it was full of police corruption, political corruption. And I was literally, I think I was probably slobbering. I was like, that is the show. That is it. So Gone Girls. If you get bored with episode 1, just skip to episode 2. You'll be hooked once you get to episode 2. It's enormous. John Ray is featured in that series as well. We're going to talk about that. So what I want you to do whether you've watched it or not, what I want you to do is I want you to bone up on Gone Girls. I want you to go watch that Netflix series, and I want you to watch John Ray and think to yourself, John Ray is going to talk to us. He's going to talk to us and answer any questions you have. So go back and watch that episode and make sure you get familiar with who John Ray is so that you can ask appropriate questions. Let's go ahead and actually show you a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put back on stage our screen. Well, if I can find it, I really is suckage at this. All right, there is attorney John Ray. This is the individual that Mari Gilbert hired to help get answers about Shannan's disappearance. He's been a pit bull. This dude is flamboyant. Look at his hats. He is a lover of hats. He's got this cool hat up here. Anyways, I should back up. He's got a hat there. He's got a purple hat there. He loves hats. This guy he's like a character, I tell you what. And he is a pit bull, and he is not afraid to say shit. In fact, one of the problems, if any, that John Ray has is that the media loved this guy when he started getting into this case. Look, here he is with Mari. That's the mother of Shannan Gilbert. If you see my mouse down there, that's John Ray and Mari Gilbert, mother of Shannan Gilbert. When he got into this, the media loved this guy, and then now they're a little afraid of him because you know what? John Ray has no fucking fear of the media. And when he got up there and had all the press, and then he showed some images of what right here, Victoria Heuermann's artwork, and suggested that the family may have known what Rex Heuermann was doing and killing women and may have been involved with it. They were like, oh shit, get away from John Ray. This guy's nuts. He's saying some shit we can't deal with. So I love the guy for that. I love the guy. He's a pit bull. So let's look at John Ray a little bit. I want to highlight some things that I love about this guy. Litigation warhorse for 43 years. This guy's been around the block. He's done prosecution. He's done defense. He's done victims advocates. This guy has done it all, which is great because one of the things I want to tell you when you watch this series in this show is I'm going to try to get to the bottom. Have John Ray explain to us. So he's not involved in Rex's prosecution, right? He's not on the prosecution side. He's also not involved in the defense of Rex Heuermann, but he is involved as a victim's advocate, right? So he's trying to get answers for the family. So he's going to explain to us, or I'm going to get him to try to explain to us how that's different. What does an attorney do as a victim's advocate? What is he trying to accomplish? How does he insert himself into that court case? Is he pro-prosecution, pro-defense? What role does he play? And how does that all work? And explain to us those kind of back things about how a victim's advocate's attorney in this role happens. This guy has been, listen to this, fears, I don't know if you can see this. Maybe I need to blow this up so you can see it on screen a little bigger. His profile's got things I just thought were fun. Fears no judge, bureaucrat, attorney, big firm, government, or anyone. and I love that about this dude. He'll say shit that'll ruffle some feathers. So that's going to be major cool. Innumerable reported cases and trials in various fields, many high-profile cases, is an intellectual and intensely dislike for successful politicians. I kind of dig that about him. I have a kind of a bug up my ass about people in power because they tend to do shitty things. People in power tend to view the peasants as peasants. And so they tend to be arrogant pricks. That doesn't mean everybody in politics is an arrogant prick, but it tends to go par for the course. So I love that he has an intense dislike for successful politicians because almost by definition, that job is kind of a shitty job in some regards. He's a religious traditionalist. That kind of worries me a little bit. I've got a strong history with religion, so I'll try to avoid, although I already know, I talked briefly to John Ray already, and John Ray's got some feelings that have to do with, well, Baphomet, for example, the demon, devil, whatever you want to call him, Baphomet. We talked about that a little bit, and it was like, oh shit, got to talk to John Ray about religion. It's going to be rough. So we'll try to handle that a little carefully. He loves clothes and hats. Yeah, he does. Look at this shit. Look at this outfit, this burgundy outfit and his hat. This dude has no fear of the camera. He's awesome. I jokingly asked when we talked about setting up this interview, he's like, is this going to be audio or is it going to be video? And I said, it's going to be video. Is that going to be okay? And he's like, hell yeah, I love the camera. This guy's funny shit. He homes in Suffolk, New York. I'm planning on going to New York in October. I'm going to see if I can maybe get a chance to kind of meet the guy in person. We'll see how that goes. But again, John Ray coming up on the show. I'm going to do that as a pre-recorded show. My idea is that him and I will just relax. We'll have a good show. I'll get it recorded. I'll get it edited with the questions and answers that fit best. And then we'll do that as a premiere. And on the premiere, I'll invite John Ray to be in the chat live with you as you're watching our interview interview play premiere so that he could type chat if he wants to with people, and I can type chat live with people as you're watching that pre-recorded interview. And then afterwards, I will for sure go live and talk to you about questions and answers that you have about that interview that took place. And I will also invite John Ray. Now, the problem is John Ray is an extremely busy man. We had to schedule out weeks in advance to get this interview done. So we've been on the calendar for quite a long time to just even get this done. He's really, really busy. So I don't know if he's going to have time to be there for the follow-up when we premiere it, but that's what we're going to try to do for you guys on the show. All right. So let me talk a little bit about what got me so excited about John Ray in the first place. John Ray had brought out an escort who claims that she had done drugs with the chief of police of Suffolk County. And I was like, what? And so, yes, she claims, hey, look, I've known this guy for a while. He goes to sex parties. He likes prostitutes. He likes to do a little coke, choke a bitch, do these kind of things. This is his style. And he gets a little rough. That's his thing. And he's the chief of police. And I thought to myself, oh my God, does that explain why, as the chief of police, when he took over, he got promoted, by the way, he took several steps up the ladder and got promoted in a very sketchy deal by some inside shit that he had with the attorney, the district attorney. And again, all that shit about his inside relationship with the district attorney, how he jumped promotion levels to become chief of police when other cops were like, how the fuck does this cop become chief of police? That cop's dirty cop. How did he become chief of police? What is his relationship with the district attorney? By the way, those individuals went to jail. Burke went to jail, the district attorney went to jail, and all of that gets teased in episode 2 of Gone Girls. So if you just pissed yourself like I did, go watch that episode. It's worth it. Trust me. So there's Burke, by the way, under arrest. John Ray basically, again, brought up Leanne, I think was her name, who was an escort who talked about how Burke liked rough sex, liked to do drugs with prostitutes. While he was a cop, he would joke about who gives a shit about prostitutes. They're just prostitutes. He didn't really give a shit about them. Supposedly after, wow, supposedly a guy broke into the chief of police's car, not realizing that it was the chief of police, raided his car, and found in there a bag of sex toys and dirty movies or whatever. And no big deal. Like, everybody's got their vices. I don't bust the guy's nuts for having porn and sex toys. That's not the problem. The problem is that it was the chief of police's car. And when the chief of police found out that this guy broke into his car and found out that he was the chief of police, they beat his ass in prison. They threatened to kill his mother. They threatened to kill him and give him a hot shot, which is basically overdose him on drugs and leave him for dead. And nobody would care because he's a junkie. And who believes the word of a junkie? And that officer, Burke, went to jail for that shit. It happened. Other officers eventually turned on him and said, yeah, I was there when he beat the guy. This happened. He threatened to kill him. This is a dirty cop all the way down. And supposedly that individual later came out and said, by the way, the video that the chief of police had in his possession was a snuff film. Was a snuff film where they actually filmed the killing of a girl. So now the question is, how deeply involved? And then you find out John Ray's like, by the way, did you know that Burke and Heuermann knew each other? Did you know that they went to sex parties together back in the past? That for 30 years, this has been potentially an ongoing relationship between the chief of police and Rex Heuermann, a serial killer. So when he became promoted to the chief of police and he dismantled the FBI task force looking into and dismantled the the Suffolk County task force looking into Rex Heuermann, one has to ask, what are you trying to hide? Are you covering up for a buddy? Now, I know that sounds nuts. Trust me, it sounds completely nuts. But that's the kind of stuff that got teased. Now, a lot of people would move away from that with a 10-foot pole. I'm going to fucking get John Ray on here and we're going to talk about that shit because that right there intrigues the piss out of me. And we've got more coming. So then the question you have to ask yourself is, what if? Let me give you a scenario. I want to give you a scenario. If you are a cop and you happen to know that there's a serial killer operating in your area, and if you have a habit, and again, please be careful. I am not accusing anyone of anybody. This is a hypothetical based on what we know. Okay, we already know that these things were alleged to have happened. So this is a hypothetical. So if you're a cop, you're a chief of police, you happen to know there's a serial killer in your area dumping bodies, and you happen to know a little bit about their MO because you've uncovered their bodies at various times. You know what kind of things that serial killer does. Then let's say you're out partying with a prostitute yourself because you're a bad cop and you do drugs and you hang out with prostitutes and you like to get rough with them. So you like to choke them a little bit. And then maybe you go too far and you choke one and you kill one. How hard would it be for you to say plausible as an idea that that person could be like, shit, I just went too far. I killed somebody. I'm just going to dump them in a burlap bag like the Gilgo beach killer, and we'll just say it's one of his, and nobody would fucking question me a bit, until of course an investigation starts happening and they start to go, why is this one not match the other ones? And you're like, shit, I got to dismantle that task force. Now, I'm not saying any of that happened, even though you think I just did. I'm not saying any of that happened. What I'm saying is, how hard would it be for you to believe that if somebody accidentally killed somebody and they happen to know there's a serial killer and they know their MO very well, they wouldn't dump a body and say, fuck, I'm just going to dump it like one of these killers, and everybody will believe it was that killer, will move away. The reason why I bring this up is because when I started to watch these episodes and I saw the bodies that were being attributed to Rex Heuermann, and I saw how much different the MO was, how some were just left in bags, bagged and bagged, gagged, whatever. And then others were dismembered and a torso is found in one place and the head's found in another place or whatever. I thought to myself, wait a minute, that's not the same killer. Now they'll try to paint that they're trying to paint now because DNA was found at the scene linking Rex Heuermann, his wife, or his daughter to those scenes. They thought, oh, it's all the same killer, and he must have just evolved. And I thought to myself, horseshit, you don't evolve that much, in my opinion. That was my first question. You don't evolve that much. You don't go from enjoying strangulating somebody, for example, to chopping them up and putting their head in one place and their hands in another place and their torso in another place. That's a completely different kind of killer, in my opinion. But what do I know? I'm not a killer. I don't study serial killers. But the point being is it seemed to me very different killers. So then along comes a new documentary, which you also need to get boned up on, called The Killing Season. Robin, by the way, turned me on to The Killing Season. She's like, dude, you need to watch The Killing Season. It's like a 6-part thing on, I think, Amazon Prime. It was an A&E special. Let me show you the picture on this real quick. Am I moving too fast? All right, hold on.
It's an excellent series. And actually, my fiance got me turned on to that years ago because they're into true crime and been following this case, and I just knew that we had to watch it. So yeah.
Let me I'm just going to pull up the I don't even have it. Oh, you know what? I have it on screen. I got it. Hold on. I thought I had a special image for that. I'm just going to go to this right here. So this is The Killing Season. This is a great series that is, it has Joshua Zeman and Rachel Mills who do that's Joshua Zeman right there on screen if you see him. And they have a excellent series. There was a moment, episode 2, when I'm watching this series, I'm getting boned up because I've got to get everything I can. And they had a very, very interesting profiler with web sleuths. He's Peter Brandt is his name. And he's a German and he's got this great accent. And he says, you're not just dancing with one serial killer, you're dancing with 2. And I was like, I just pissed myself again. Yes, there are 2 killers. So I was so excited.
Do I have to give you some Depends or what?
I think so. Maybe it's an incontinence issue. I knew I was old. I need to take care of that shit. But the point being is that as soon as he said this guy who was Peter Brandt is featured in this a lot, talks about how this is 2 killers in his opinion, and Zeman goes down that path. Like, well, what if this is more than one killer? He started talking about all these things that I'm like, yes, and yes. 2 serial killers competing, desecrating each other's dump sites by dumping their bodies in the other person's dump site. It's a game of cat and mouse, potentially one killer hunting another, or somebody working in tandem or in duo, 2 killers working together with different likes. One person likes to choke women, another one likes to cut them up, whatever the case may be. It could be 2 killers that are working together in similar fashion, in tandem or in parallel. That's what we're going to cover at the end of the night, because it's the thumbnail of this thing, is tandem killers and parallel killers. And could the Gilgo Beach killer be more than one killer? Are these crimes all done by the same person? At the end of the day, you might not care, except you have to understand there's a law enforcement incentive to close cases. So if you can just easily close any body in the area and say, oh, that's one of Rex's. Yep, that's one of Rex's. Oh, that's one of Rex's. It's the easy cop out. No pun intended when we're talking about cops. It could be the easy cop out. So the question becomes will bodies get attributed to Rex Heuermann that are not his? And if so, will another serial killer walk because they don't want to look too hard, because they want to take the easy answer, they want to close cold cases? When you start looking at the differences between these murders, you have to start asking yourself a lot of great questions. Now, here's the surprise that I've been wanting to tell you. Josh Zeman, who did this series, I watched episode 2 and I was like, I got to talk to this guy. I reached out to Josh Zeman. Josh right here has a YouTube channel. He's just getting started, Sinister with Josh Zeman. He's got a lot of videos already. He talks a lot about stuff. He's got what's that? Did you have something over there? Or you? Oh, I heard a dog bark in the background. anyways, that's Josh Zeman. Guess what? I got Josh Zeman coming on a week after John Ray. So Josh Zeman's going to talk about the killing season. So for F's sake, do yourselves a favor, people, especially if you're, if you're watching a replay. Yeah, go ahead.
Lee, the thing you were showing earlier was actually from a show that Josh did called Urban Legends. That's not the killing season. So you'll want to.
You're talking about this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the killing season over here on the thumbnail.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry if I didn't know if I made that clear. So that's the killing season. That's what it looks like when you go look for it on the thumbnail when you're trying to find the series of the killing season. I don't know what was playing in the middle. Was that what you're saying? The middle one wasn't the same show?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. This is the thumbnail for the killing season that has to do with Rex Heuermann. So thanks for clarifying that. But anyway, so I got Josh Zeman coming on a week after John Ray. So these things, and here's the unfortunate part: the lives aren't big enough for these big names. So we're going to do it as pre-records. We're going to do it as premieres. We're going to try to get the information out there. But what you want to do is you want to get yourself watching, if you haven't done it already, Gone Girls, and get into the chat on Discord that's called Questions for John Ray, and get those questions to me. You want to also watch this part, the killing season that has Josh Zeman, and look at what he's uncovered and ask the questions that you want to have me ask of Josh Zeman. Now, I won't necessarily ask those same questions. I've got my own list of questions. I could ask him questions for easily an hour, but I know that you're going to have one or two in there that I absolutely have to slip in there. So make sure you catch those. All right. How are we doing on questions and comments in the room? Like it's so sad that we don't have the audience yet for these rooms to appreciate that. These are huge deals. They're going to be enormous. But anyways, what else do we have in the chat? Anything yet?
Well, Jennifer, we have her hooked, and she anticipates some long nights ahead.
she's scared. Yeah, serial killers can be a scary thing. And in fact, when it was funny because when Peter Brandt in that episode 2 says, you're not just dancing with one serial killer, you're dancing with two. I thought to myself, there's a chilling thing that when you, as a true crime person, are trying to uncover the killings of serial killers, you are in a way dancing with the devil. You're playing with fire, because if that person's still on the loose and you know what I'm saying? It's a gray area. Like if you start to uncover something, are you yourself in trouble? So it comes with this. It's a scary territory as a true crimer as well, to start to dance with the devil, if you will, if that's the case. So let's get into some of my initial thoughts again about Rex Heuermann, and then we'll get into those killer things, those serial killer tandems, duos, and why I brought that up. Well, let's go here. Let me explain a little bit about that. One of the things was that John Ray he went up in front of a bunch of press, and he said you could see the press literally turning on him when he got them on camera, and he's showing images of what Victoria Heuermann, daughter of Rex Heuermann, was doing in her artwork. And he's like, they're kind of like looking at him like, oh my God, what the hell is John Ray doing? So he's bringing up the fact that Victoria has morbid artwork that she loves, and on Instagrams and different places. And she also does her own art that is very morbid, like teeth marks, bites on bodies, and things like this. She has some kind of weird, she has very creepy comments that she leaves on videos, things like this, like the inside of my brain looks like this kill scene, this big morbid scene. Let's blow that up a little bit. So she's got some very weird things. And so John Ray was suggesting, what did Victoria Heuermann see and know in her house? Why does she refer to things like this as sex toys, which are cutting instruments, blades, saws? These are sex toys. These are for sex. Somebody asks, what are you talking about? And she's like, don't you realize that sex and violence are like two sides of the same coin? What kind of individual is that? So he is asking those questions. John Ray stirs he doesn't have a problem stirring the shit. There are a lot of people who are like, no, sir. Like Rex Heuermann's DNA was found at the crime scenes. It has to be Rex. He's like, well, did you not realize that Asa's DNA was also found at the crime scene?
Whoa.
Holy shit, Leah! Thank you for the super fucking apartment.
Yeah.
I just pissed myself again. Incontinence depends, apparently, are on my future. Thank you so much, Leah, for the support. Appreciate that so much. So this guy, like I said, he's not afraid to say shit. And he's got a lot of depictions. The media started to kind of back away from him a little bit. So I'm excited to talk to him about the stuff that the media is afraid to talk about, which is whether they could be involved. And I will tell you this. My first thought was, what if, for example, and again, it's a hypothetical, but the question was, what if Rex Heuermann's wife did know about the killings? Not only that, but they were supposedly, according to John Ray, these individuals were swingers. They had prostitutes over to the house. In Rex Heuermann's house, allegedly in the basement, he had a kill room. It was a vault that the family wasn't allowed in, or so we're told. Now the question has to be asked, were they allowed into the vault? Was it their kill room? Was it just his kill room, or was it their kill room? Now, to be fair, I don't know that they've proven definitively at all that it even was a kill room. They just suspect that it could be a kill room. It's where Rex Heuermann kept a very, very large collection of firearms. He was a firearm aficionado and collector. However, the murders were not done with firearms. But in that room, it would have been a great place for suspension stuff, basically to hang women from the ceiling. I know that's a little bit morbid, but they tore that house down. They tore the rafters out because they literally had reason to believe that Rex Heuermann was suspending women in his kill room and killing them inside the house. Now, originally the story went, if you haven't heard, is that Rex Heuermann would kill these women when his family was out of town. He would wait for his wife Asa to leave town with her daughter and son. They would go out of town, like to Sweden or whatever, for a couple of weeks, and then he would kill women, bring them to the house and kill them, and that the family had no idea this was going on for a great number of time. Later, however, people like John Ray came out. Is it really true that they didn't know what's going on? The house, for example, that they lived in was full of all kinds of satanic type images, statues and shit that make you creep out. Victoria had an obsession with death and macabre and murder and chopped up bodies in her artwork. So how much did she really know and see? Was it really completely under their complete blinders, or did they actually know what was going on? And so that is my $1 million question. Did they know? Was this a tandem thing? Now, to be fair, Victoria Heuermann, on some of the dismembered bodies, she was like 1 or 2 years old. So you can pretty much, I think we can rule Victoria out for being anything to do with the killings and the dismembered bodies that happened around age 1 or 2. The other ones happened at age 13 and 14. So she also would be very, very young. And I looked up into it, and I don't think that I've been able to confirm in history that there has ever been a father-daughter killing duo. However, there's been plenty of husband and wife duos. There's been siblings duos. There have been family or familial duo killers who work together and sometimes have different MOs. One of that pair might like to torture people. Another one might like to do something else to people. And so sometimes they work together to protect each other, and they work in a close bond because they have some kind of fetish in common, but they like different things. Their proclivities are different. So therefore, could you have, again, with the Gilgo Beach killer, even somebody that was working with another killer that they hunted together, but they had different ways that they like to kill? Maybe one killer didn't like to dismember bodies. Maybe they like to only choke them or whatever. So that's my questions. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I feel like people like John Ray are not afraid to ask those questions. Joshua Zeman, not afraid to go down that rabbit hole, because that's a lot of what the killing season is about, is going down that rabbit hole of potential multiple killers. And again, what happened when those cases, like the killing season, was filmed before Rex Heuermann was identified, I believe. And so when he was identified and they started to say, well, DNA was found at the scene from Rex Heuermann and his family members, which they say is just trace DNA, that Rex Heuermann must have tied up a girl, for example, from things in his house, used duct tape, for example, in his house, and therefore that explains how his daughter's hair or his wife's hair got onto the duct tape, and that's the only reason why that family member is on that body. But the question I would have to ask, because I'm going to ask until you prove me wrong, is could it have been more than that? Could somebody else's DNA be there because somebody else was involved in it? Is that the answer? Or can you really just simply say, oh, the answer has to be it's him, and you're just making up the story? So I can make up the story and we'll follow it until you can prove me wrong. And yeah, so and by the way, the MOs were so much different. Bodies being left in burlap bags versus bodies being left in plastic totes or garbage bags. There's completely different. Bodies being chopped up versus bodies being, and I know this is gruesome. I know this is a little late for this kind of shit. It's going to give Jennifer nightmares. I apologize, Jennifer. You're probably going to, if you need help with counseling, I'll send you $1 or $2 and help you out with the counseling. But anyways, the point being is that it's going to be a little scary to get into these people's lives. So, by the way, I want to let you know, one of the things that I'm also doing is I'm covering this book, Lost Girls, written by Robert Kolker. This was one of the first books on the Gilgo murders before Rex Heuermann was identified. It spends a lot of time. Half the book is about the victims that were found and their lives. And I will be frank, while I don't want to be disrespectful to the victims, I don't feel like it gave really any kind of value to finding out who the killer was. Understanding who their brothers, uncles, cousins, sisters was, and when they got into drugs at a young age, whatever, didn't really help the narrative. The bottom line is you can kind of start from the moment that they kind of went down the wrong path and they were in sex work and they did drugs. That's where you could start that thing, because I don't know that the other stuff really shed light on it. Now, maybe I'm being a little ignorant, but the rest of the book, the other half of the book, is about the conspiracies involved with it, the high level politicians that might be involved in it, the cops that might be involved with it. That shit makes me excited, because that's where the meat's at. Now, again, I don't mean to be disrespectful to the victims. I think it's important to know their names, and we will talk about their names regularly as we go, so that they don't get forgotten. But let's, again, at the end of the day, make sure we get the right guy, and that there's not multiple killers, and that there's not cover-ups, and there's not police involvement and all those other things, because if so, those people should go to jail as well. But anyways, what I was showing you on the screen next is can I not add it to stage? Do I have to remove that from the stage first? Remove. All right. Add. There you go. My playlists. So on my YouTube channel, I've got right there at the top, LISK, Gilgo Beach Murders, 17 videos. And I've also have that book that we were just talking about, Lost Girls, the book review. I've got 3 videos where I do about an hour each as I'm covering the book and giving you the spicy parts of the book. So if you're interested in, again, getting boned up on where Devil's Advocate's head goes and what he thought was interesting, that's how you find out what I thought was interesting in that book. So again, I recommend you watch Gone Girls on Netflix, The Killing Season on A&E or Amazon Prime. Get yourself maybe a copy of Lost Girls if you want. Follow on with my book series. I'm going to continue that. In fact, I was going to cut another episode of Lost Girls this morning, but this has been a crazy day. I've had phone calls with all kinds of people today as this channel is starting to get some attention and is starting to go in good places. So let's hope that we can get the audience up, because it deserves a little bit more attention. All right. Lost Girls is on Netflix. Yes. So what else do I have? So we got that. I think we can cover that. So let's go to this, kind of like the ending of my thoughts. Let's talk about some interesting, let's explore this idea of multiple killers. And again, what I wanted to point out, have you guys, let me see if I can pull up a couple of things real quick. I want to show you an image file of, hold on.
That judge looks like he's asleep.
Oh, yes. Yeah. That kind of reminds me of Judge Hippler in the other case. By the way, this is the scene. By the way, this is an image from the scene, and I'm an animal lover, so trust me, this scene was rough. This is, if you've never seen the old show called The Shield, it was really, really cutting edge for regular TV. They did some shit on that show that you're like, oh my god, how is this not on an R-rated show? This cannot be on regular TV. It was on FX, I think it was. But anyways, this was when a cop was catching a serial killer. And during that discussion with the serial killer and getting into the mind of the killer, he basically comes across the idea that the killer said there's nothing like looking in someone's eyes when you kill them and watching the life go out. And that's when you can basically see God, is when you watch the lights go out in somebody's thing. And so at the end of this episode, and by the way, this actor, that's a curiosity, the actor had a real fucking problem with this scene. He did not want to do it. He was an animal lover himself. And he's like, I'm not doing that scene. And they're like, trust us, this is the evolution of this character, that he so much wants to understand the killers that he's hunting, that he needs to understand what it's like. And so a house cat comes up, or a stray cat comes up. The episode was called Strays, and he chokes out this house cat and watches it die. He gets shredded. His chest gets shredded in the fight for the cat. It's a little brutal, and it was hard. The actor had a hard time with the scene, but it left you with that moment of wondering, so that is there people who investigate true crime, cops who investigate true crime, who get obsessed with wanting to know, what is that like? If I'm going to catch a killer, do I have to think like a killer? How far will somebody go for their craft to understand, if I got to catch a killer, I got to think like a killer. If I got to think like a killer, I got to understand, what is the appeal? What is it like to do something like that? How can you hurt somebody and not feel anything? Can I do that kind of thing? Could I be that kind of person? How far would someone go with that? By the way, somebody wanted to have you unmute them or whatever. Did somebody have to check out hearing about the cat? They can probably tell them that they were good now. Jay Ray, I apologize. I'm an animal lover. Let's take that down. Let's take it off the screen. Let's take the animal lover off the screen. I wanted to also show you another picture or two, if I can. These will not be horrible images. Anything to do with animals. Do you remember this? Dexter. Dexter was a series about a serial killer who worked for the police station. He was a forensics guy and he worked at the police station. And as a serial killer, Dexter had a code of ethics. He only believed in killing bad people. There was a great season or two featuring John Lithgow, who was also a serial killer. And these two got into a battle of wits, two mastermind killers who were dancing with each other. And this is one of the things that I said that got that piqued my interest in the killing season, is the idea that sometimes a killer will see another killer and there'll be a competition of sorts, and even like pissing on each other's dump sites. I'm going to dump my horrific chopped up body in your site where you have your pristine bodies in a bag, for example, as an insult to you, because it desecrates your sacred ground. As twisted as that sounds, that is something that could have happened. Is somebody could have been like one-upsmanship. I'm going to piss on your crime scene with my crime scene, or I'll take credit for your crimes by putting my bodies with your crimes. It's a crazy, crazy world. And yes, that's the Dexter, of course, is a fictional series if somebody didn't know that. But anyways, Dexter was a great show. There was another thing that I wanted to point out about Dexter, if I can pull it on screen, is there was a moment where Dexter was, and let's see if I can pull that. Dexter was mentoring a up-and-coming serial killer. So he was going to kill this young man in one of the series who he believed was a photographer. This young man was a photographer, and Dexter realized that he was hunting and killing women indiscriminately. But at some point, he began to sympathize with the kid and saw himself in this serial killer, and they decided to teach him a new code of ethics. But the point being is that the idea put into your head was sometimes serial killers are disgusted by other serial killers' MOs. They understand the need to kill, but they don't understand is why the hell would you do it that way? That's not how you do it. That's not how you kill somebody. So I find these things psychologically interesting to go down those rabbit holes. And that's what made me interested when I started getting into the killing season, where, you know, Peter Brandt was like, you've got two serial killers and they're competing with each other or hunting each other. And I'm like, oh, it's freaking Dexter and John Lithgow's character. I don't even remember what his name was. He had a nickname for the bathtub killer. I think it was the bathtub killer in Dexter. And we won't even get into that one. All right. So we're gonna remove that from the screen. So let's get into this now, which is some famous, just for shits and giggles, about serial killers. One of the things that I found was interesting, by the way, there was a bunch of stats. And I think in episode 2 of the killing season that talked about some myths about serial killers. A lot of us have the impression that serial killers are predominantly male and that they're predominantly very intelligent males. In reality, it seems that serial killers are not actually highly intelligent. A lot of them are actually 5 to 10% below average. So average being 100 IQ, these guys will have IQs somewhere in the 80 to 90 range instead of even the average 100 IQ. These are not necessarily super bright individuals. So you start to look at some of the famous killers and you're like, how did they get away with murder for so long if they aren't that particularly smart about it? So I think there's a stereotype in our society that serial killers have to be smart to get away with it for so long. Sometimes I think they just get lucky, or they just, whatever the case may be. But anyways, I wanted to point out some stories that I thought were interesting for shits and giggles. Before I do that, does anybody have any, because this is going to be kind of like some just not related to LISK, other than it's related to LISK in the sense to point out to you that tandem and parallel killers are a thing. So therefore, when you're looking at this idea, is the Gilgo Beach murders all one guy? Is it two killers killing in tandem at the same time in the same basic area, not related to each other? Perhaps interweaving with each other in some weird dance between the two of each other? Are they working in parallel with each other? How would that work if there was two killers? So any questions, comments, or concerns before we get into the 5 serial killer partnerships that we're going to deal with, and then we'll end the night on a few business things, telling you about up-and-coming shows and all that good stuff. Any questions? Such a quiet night. And I feel like I've got some energy tonight. What the hell? I got energy and just low key. All right, here we go. 5 killer partnerships. The idea of serial murder as cunning white men between 25 and 30 years of age who boosts an above average intellect is actually something of a stereotype and not particularly accurate. When you look back through previous 3 decades of American history, the data as to who serial killers often are and how they operate, the results are more than a little surprising. Started by a professor of psychology at Radford University, the center's research empirically shows that only 12.5%, or 1/8 of serial killers in America, fit into the typecast of the smart Caucasian male. Only 1/8, 12%, fit that stereotype of a smart, middle-aged white male who's brilliant. That's not, but that's how we project him. Even Dexter's that MO. Dexter's hunter that he goes up against is also that MO. The male white stereotype, smart guy, really smart. That's not even the typical type of deal. Also known, the Serial Killer Database Project works with Mike Ahmad, I can't pronounce that right, and his team shows that since the late 1980s, in the US, a surprising number of serial killers have been female, around 10%, African American, 60%, and over 30%, over 30. So yeah, 70% were over 30. So they're older individuals, with the average IQ ranging between 5 to 10% lower than Joe and Joanne Public. So again, not necessarily bright individuals, which is surprising when we have our stereotype about serial killers. All right. I bet you, Kimberly, I do not. There's a bunch. I talked, by the way, Kimberly says, I bet you don't have my two on the list. I probably don't. I talked to Pete Altieri about this because I'm like, dude, this is your wheelhouse. I know you talk about serial killers all the time. And he's like, yeah, you need to look at this. You need to look at this, and you need to look at this. The guys that he mentioned, or the pairings that he mentioned, aren't even on this pairing list. We're just going to deal with this pairing list for now because Pete has covered those other people pretty well. And maybe we'll talk about that on the upcoming show. In fact, after we do Brian Koberger tomorrow with A.R. Hayes, we're going to return to this duo killing. So Pete will bring up the other pairings. Kimberly, let me know who that other person is. I'll make sure Pete and I talk about it on that show. All right. The myth busting doesn't end here, though. The idea that serial killers stalk the street for their prey as fearsome lone wolves is somewhat of a fallacy. There have been plenty that have come as a deadly duo, and not just romantic pairings either. So forget the likes of Hindley and Brady, or Fred and Rosemary West for a moment, and come with us on a journey exploring some of the truly bizarre, wretched world of platonic serial killer partnerships. So, there's a lot of fucking ads in this one. I was surprised I even realized there was still a story down here. Look at all those ads. Somebody gets paid. Anyways, Henry Lee Lucas and Otis Toole. Mr. Henry Lee Lucas, convicted of 11 murders, the one-eyed Lucas is thought to have committed many, many, many more. In fact, on his arrest, the man claimed to have been directly involved with 3,000 murders. Few people realize that the man rarely acted alone, though. His preferred killing pal was an arson-obsessed rapist and murderer by the name of Otis Elwood Toole. So they had different modus operandi, two killers that have different ways they like to kill, working together. Both already convicted killers, the two men befriended each other in a Floridian soup kitchen back in 1976. Each man sensed a bloodlust in the other, and the two quickly became inseparable. Plenty has been written about Henry Lee Lucas down through the years, with thousands of articles and dozens of books written about the man, not to mention the countless documentaries and movies made about him. His sometimes accomplice Otis O'Toole is just as fascinating character, though. Known as the Jacksonville Cannibal, Toole admitted later in jail in some detail how he and Lucas would kidnap, mutilate, kill, and sometimes even eat their victims. Sometimes the cannibalism would be part of a ritual or ceremony he claimed that the pair took part in with the death cult, for whom their pair also would kidnap children for. They kidnapped children for a death cult. What the fuck happens in our country that's a thing? Anyways. And here's a strange but true tidbit. During his tenure as governor of Texas, George W. Bush quite famously executed more people than any of his predecessors. In fact, he never commuted any death row prisoner sentence at all, apart from one person, Henry Lee Lucas, one of the most vicious and prolific serial killers in American history. Work that one out. What the fuck? George Bush executes everyone that he can during his time, and the guy he lets off is the most prolific serial killer in his state. I can't do it. Wolfgang Abel and Marco Furlan. This is a German couple, right? Dusseldorf born Wolfgang Abel and his handsome and well-educated young man who worked for an insurance company. Although born in Germany, he was raised in the Italian city of Verona. His friend Marco Furlan, a similarly fresh-faced university graduate, was as sharp, good-looking, charismatic, and easily bored as his pal Abel. Both men happened to share quite a far-right political sensibility and, wouldn't you know it, violent tendencies. The pair's crimes were driven by their hatred of various sections of society. While the number of people killed by Abel and Furlan doesn't compare with some of the other partners in crime on the list, the two more than make up for their relatively small death count with grisly and grotesque nature of their abominable crimes. Check out, by the way, if you don't like to hear gruesome stuff, because it's a little gruesome. All right, the first murder saw them burn a drug-addicted traveler to death in his own car by throwing Molotov cocktails in the vehicle as he slept inside. Then they knifed two gay lovers, stabbing one of them 40 times. The pair killed a 51-year-old sex worker with an axe and two elderly priests with hammers. the second of which had large nails hammered into his forehead for good measure. They then went back to arson, setting a student on fire while they slept in their sleeping bag. These guys were horrible. They were only and so their MO was all over the place. They just like to kill, period. Like to kill as many creative, crazy ways that they could. They were only caught after setting their sights higher. They briefly got away with burning down a porn cinema, killing 6 men that were inside the porn cinema. 1 woman died and 40 were injured as they attempted to burn down a disco theater together afterwards. But it was just after a botched attempt to set a nightclub containing 400 people that the two were apprehended. Strange fact, but true. At each one of their devastating crimes, the pair left a unique printed leaflet written in Italian. They signed off with the name Ludwig and prominently featured a Nazi eagle and a swastika in the background. Each separated leaflet had its own slogan, included which a chilling line that says, "We are the last of the Nazis, and death comes to those who betray the true God." What the fuck was with these guys? Anyways, interesting individuals. But again, the idea is that serial killers sometimes kill in tandem. They become friends. Did the Long Island serial killer have a friend that liked to kill differently? Does this explain the differences between bodies dumped in a plastic bin, chopped up and deposited over the island, versus those carefully wrapped in a burlap bag, bound and gagged? Is that a different type of killer? Is it 2 killers working in tandem? Because that's the reason why the DNA could be at both scenes. Or is one serial killer hunting the other or pissing on the other one's dumping ground and desecrating it with his own style of stuff? There's all kinds of shit that could be happening in this case. And I think you're going to find it interesting, because if you go down the rabbit hole of doing that, you're going to learn so much about true crime and forensics. And there's going to be, it's going to be fascinating. I think it's really going to hold your attention as we get into this. Kenneth Bianchi and Angelo Bruno, the Hillside Stranglers. When Angelo Bruno Jr. heard that his little cousin was leaving Rochester home in the winter of 1976 and moving west to California, he picked up the phone and told him that he was welcome to stay with him in LA until he got on his feet. The far shyer and more reserved Kenneth Bianchi was thrilled for the offer. Both men were vicious, women-despising maniacs who continued to kill independently even after their falling out. 2 years later, the men would be arrested for working together on kidnaps, rapes, tortures, and murders of 10 young women after a 4-month-long reign of terror that started with low-end prostitution ring and ended with a figurative pile of corpses. A figurative. It was assumed at the time that Buono coerced his younger and more reserved relative into helping him commit crimes. The truth, however, was even grimmer. Both men were vicious, women-despising maniacs who continued to kill independently even after falling out and refused to murder together again until 1978. Luckily for the women of America, both men were caught and imprisoned the following year. Now, this is super interesting as well. I find this really interesting. In November of 1977, Bianchi and Buono pulled over a 24-year-old woman called Catherine Laurie Baker. As they were about to kidnap and kill Catherine, they went through her purse looking for ID. They saw a photograph of young Catherine with the moon-faced Austro-Hungarian actor Peter Lorre, famous horror film actor. He was, it transpired, her father. The Hillside Stranglers refused to strangle her out of respect for the old man who did horror films. I find that shit fucking crazy. Ironically, it was the pair's love of Peter Lorre's portrayal of twisted child killer Fritz Lang's in the classic 1931 thriller M that made them release the young woman. So they're like, oh my God, we just got the daughter of a legend. Of course, he was just an actor, but there's some weird shit in that. I don't think we're going to talk too much about Delfina and Marina de Jesus Gonzalez. They were a pair of women. Well, shit, why not? To their community, their north central Mexican state of Guanajuato. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. They were known as Gonzalez sisters. To their friends and family, they were Delfina and Maria. In time, when their crimes were known, they would become known as I can't pronounce that. This is why I didn't want to do it. I can't do a lot of Mexican or Spanish stuff. Puenches? I don't know. Later, the Guinness World Record would call them the world's most prolific ever murder partnership. How did I almost pass up on this? Because of the Spanish? Wow, what a lazy asshole I am. This is a fascinating story. The bodies of 11 men and 80 women were discovered scattered in shallow graves across the grounds. For more than a decade, the pair owned and operated Rancho El Angel, a brothel that they ran, it's fair to say, quite with an iron fist. In 1963, the ranch was raided by Mexican authorities. They discovered something that no amount of training can prepare you for. The bodies of 11 men and 80 women were discovered scattered in shallow graves across the grounds. It didn't take much to drive Maria and Delfina to murder either. Customers would take the big step if they misbehaved or assaulted one of the girls. Forced abortions were commonplace, but it was the girls who really suffered. Failed to please the punters, act up, or even have their temerity to lose their looks. So if you started to not make them money, then they would strictly end, your life would end at the hands of the lunatic Gonzalez sisters. So a female pairing, again, females do the killing as well. So this is just interesting. But again, all of this is about your mindset that killers can work in tandem, can work in parallel. They work together, but they have different killing methods. Does that happen? All right. Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. Leonard Lake was a sadistic Vietnam vet and paranoid schizophrenic, a history of sexually abusing his sister and a penchant, his sisters, plural, and a penchant for starring in and distributing his own extreme BDSM pornography. Charles Ng was a Chinese American with history of theft and violence who had been thrown out of the U.S. Marines for attempting to steal a cache of machine guns. The men kidnapped California women and kept them in dingy dungeons concealed in their cabin behind a false wall. Individually, each man was dangerous. Together, they were truly devastating and sickening, murderous two-man crime wave. The two men met in 1983 and forged an instant bond. They discovered they shared more than a few fringe hobbies, and each of them spurred each other on, and they soon began living out their macabre fantasies. Within 2 years, the couple killed anywhere between 11 and 35 women. Lake had a cabin in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains. The men kidnapped California women, kept them in a dingy dungeon, concealed in the cabinet behind a false wall. That kind of seems like it repeated from earlier up there, right? There they would be beat, humiliated, raped, tortured, and they would kill their victims. Lake would often photograph or film the murders with one tape used in court against them, truly shocking the stunned and understandably disgusted jury. Could you imagine how difficult it would be as a juror to watch someone's life ended as they're tortured in front of you, and you have to watch it because it's your job to realize what these people did? That's shit that will stick with those jurors for the rest of their lives. Because you can't, I don't think you can. I know, I've seen before. I've seen something I can't even talk about. I've seen something and you can't unsee that shit. When you see it, you'll never unsee it. It lives with you the rest of your fucking life. It damages you. I can't even imagine those poor jurors having to watch that tape. Strange case of true. Ng served 33 years of jail, but Lake never really saw justice. Shortly after the 1985 arrest, he swallowed cyanide pills and managed to, that he smuggled into his jail and secreted in his clothing. So one of them took the easy way out and killed himself. So there you go. I just wanted to point out again that serial killers can work in tandem. They can work in parallel. It happens more often than you think. The idea that these things are just males and they're not females that kill, that's something you need to put out of your head. It is a thing. Is the Long Island serial killer really one individual or a group of individuals? Could there be police officers who have killed more than one person, perhaps by accident, and just dumped them along a known area saying, well, shit, they'll just think it's the Long Island serial killer. Nobody will look twice about it until they do. And then, so the question becomes is, how deep will this rabbit hole go? And I will ask all kinds of shit, and I will knock down doors if I have. Okay, door knocking is not my thing yet. I haven't got balls enough to do that, but I am calling directors of documentaries and attorneys, and that's so maybe the next step will be knocking down doors. Who knows? Let's end with a couple of business things. Again, I'm going to CrimeCon 2025 very, very shortly. September 3rd is when I'm probably start leaving on that trip. I'm going to be there for the 4th, 5th, and the 6th, or is it the 5th, 6th, and I think it's the 5th, 6th, and the 7th at CrimeCon. When I go there, I'm going to be sporting my new merchandise, for my channel on YouTube. You have an opportunity, because I had to buy these for myself to be able to wear them at the CrimeCon, and so I'm going to give you an opportunity to get pre-orders because I had to pay for a certain number of pieces. That's what the zipper hoodie looks like. We've also got a V-neck tee for ladies, and we've got a regular pullover hoodie as well. It's slick looking stuff. It's high quality screen printing, not iron-on cheap bullshit. So if you're interested in that, please go to devilsadvocates.info/shop and pre-order those, because I have to place the order for the exact number of each size and quantity and style in about 3 days. I think it's 3 or 4 days that maybe I have left. I think the 20th. The 20th is my deadline for submitting the actual final count of how many zipper hoodies versus regular hoodies. So check that out if you are willing to do that. And again, don't forget, tomorrow night, I'm going on with Pete Altieri from Murder, Metal, Mayhem, along with A.R. Hayes from A Convict's Thoughts. We're going to talk about We're going to talk about Brian Koberger and some of the allegations that are coming about how he's being treated. He's being heckled from people through the vent system in the cell block where he's at. Is that true? A.R. Hayes allegedly has said things like basically people need to shut the fuck up about things they don't know about how it really works inside a prison. Let's talk to A.R. Hayes about his time behind bars, some of the things that he might know. I'll talk some stories about some inmates that I have visited in my life. I have a cousin who has the record for having been the biggest Ponzi scheme artist in the state where I'm currently living. I visited him in a prison. That's a story that I'll share on that show as well. So check that out as well. I feel like there's so many cool stories and hardly anybody watching. That's a shame on that part, but good thing we have a replay crew. What do we have, Robin? Do we have anything else we need to address before we head out?
Scout asked what time tomorrow.
5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So Pete's in a different time zone. I think he's in Central, so I think it's 7 for him. But for me, it's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 Central, I think is what it is. That'll be the show with Pete Altieri. So thanks for asking. Any other questions?
Jennifer had a good one, and I don't know why it doesn't let me highlight the comments. She asked, do you think serial killers have a scent for victims like drug addicts can sense a fellow drug addict or dealer?
Yeah, great question. I was going to try to pin that. I'm looking for that comment, but I guess I'll just riff on it. Oh, here it is. There we go. Yes, I mean, I think, have you ever heard the phrase, I guess I have victim written all over my forehead, right? Have you ever heard that phrase? Some people, I think, have victim written on their forehead. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're everyone's victim, but I think that it is true that certain killers can see their victim. They know a certain type, right? They know that they can get into that person and they can get them to get into their car, or they can, whatever the case may be, for their type of killing. So I think it is very possible that serial killers, and again, I'm not a serial killer expert. I'll tell you that. I've got a friend who loves serial killers, and he'll probably tell me whether I'm wrong or right. But my sense is that yes, serial killers know their type, and it's kind of like a sixth sense. When they see it, they immediately recognize it, and like, oh yeah, it's not just I happen to like pretty blondes or whatever the case may be. It's more of they know the type that would give them the most satisfaction, and it's probably something intuitive they pick up on, like you would say, kind of like a scent, like, oh, that smells like primo torture bait right there. Sick as that is. All right. Any other questions? No other questions? Somebody said to check out Brian Enton's latest drop. I don't know if I could check out Brian Enton's thing. I don't know that I have the biggest love thing with Brian Enton, but we'll see.
Tumbleweed has a good comment.
There was a study done that indicated that predators have a certain type of, this is the one you're talking about, right, Robin?
Yep.
Yeah, there was a study done that indicated that the predators have a certain type of person in mind, and they can tell how a person carries himself or herself, whether or not they'll be a good victim. Right, that's kind of like what I'm saying. Like, I think they see certain markers in certain people. I remember, was it Ted Bundy that famously said, if you touch the door handle of my car, I've got you. If I can get you to touch the door, so they would know, like, I can get that person to come up to me, I give them a smile and say, hey, and ask them a question, and I know that person's going to come up, and you touch the handle of my car, you're done. I've got you. So I think that they have a way to determine those kind of people that they're going to be good with. And if you don't fall into it and they're wrong, they'll move on and find somebody who is like that. But somebody's got a comment. I think Joseph Brewer, Michael Pack, James Bissett, John Bitroff, Dr. Hackett, Jay Burke knew what was going on during the Gilgo Beach incident. So, Ronnie, fortunately for me, as I'm getting up to speed in this, I actually know almost all the names you just mentioned, which is exciting for me because when I first started, I couldn't tell you who the hell any of those people were. Yes, Michael Pack, the driver of Shannan Gilbert, who drove her to the scene of, I believe, Joseph Brewer's house. He was the John that she was going to see. That is when the 911 call happened. When she was leaving Joseph Brewer's house, Joseph Brewer was very quickly ruled out as the suspect. Michael Pack also was quickly ruled out as having anything to do with it. James Bissett, now those were, and Bitroff, Hackett, Dr. Hackett, he worked with the police department as an autopsy or a doctor that did forensics type of work. There was all kinds of indications that they may have been involved or know or covered up for things. So the names I'm familiar with, thank you for bringing it up. All of that is in Robert Kolker's book, Lost Girls. So if you want to hear about those individuals and read about those, I'm also doing the series on the Lost Girls book series reading on my channel where I talk about that a bit as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Anybody else? Comments? Anybody? Yeah, there was, by the way, when Shannan went missing, I think the family, it might have been Mari. By the way, as an interesting aside, did you hear what happened to Mari Gilbert and John Ray's story with Sarah Gilbert? Holy shit, let's end on that. That's the shocker if you haven't heard that story. So, for years, John Ray's representing Mari, trying to get answers for her daughter's death. One of her other daughters, Sarah, who suffered from schizophrenia for years, ended up stabbing her mother 270 something times and beating her head in with a fire extinguisher. John Ray, of all people, actually was her attorney in the murder of her own mother, who is also his client trying to find Shannan's killer. That shit is off the hook. John Ray had made an argument that Sarah had been off of her psych meds for some time, and she had a psychotic break, a psychotic episode spurred by schizophrenia, and that a sane person wouldn't have done that. As in fact, one of his arguments basically was, what sane person would stab somebody 271 times? Clearly, she was out of her mind, so he was working on an insanity defense. The jury did not buy the insanity defense. They gave her second-degree murder, I believe. But shit, maybe we'll talk to John Ray about that. I don't know how he feels about it. There's a part of me that wants to say, like, how weird is it you're representing Mari, and then she gets stabbed to death while she's your client by her daughter, and you represent her daughter? Like, what kind of world are we living in that's a thing? So maybe we'll ask John about that. Maybe we'll save that for the end so that when I piss him off, he doesn't say, yeah, I can't believe you just asked me that question. Like, well, how do you not ask that question, John? So we'll see. Any other questions, comments, concerns? I think that was the last thing I said I was going to cover, and here I'm talking still. Ronnie is like, oh yeah, I think I remember hearing that. Your channel's a fun ride. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Like some people say I'm a storyteller, so I suss out the interesting tidbits and make it into an interesting story, if nothing else. Although I think that you're going to learn a lot about the law, because I will break down legal documents. I have attorneys on my show. If you haven't watched this channel before, I have attorneys that come on regularly. Again, like John Ray is an attorney that's coming on. We've had, Ali Benevento, great attorney from South Carolina, criminal defense attorney of 15 years. We've had, it's been a long time now since I've had Cynthia Thornton on. She had some personal issues came on. I still text her from time to time, and Cynthia keeps saying she wants to come on the show again from time to time. But Cynthia and I she's got a lot going on in her life right now. So it just hasn't happened, but that's what we're trying to work on. I break down legal documents. I put things in plain terms. I help educate you. I'm trying to get everyone up to speed. By the way, one of the things I heard from Josh Zeman, who again is my interview coming up in a couple of weeks, Josh Zeman was talking to somebody on his show Sinister and saying that it's surprising that the West Coast seems to not even be talking about Long Island serial killer. He's like, for some reason, the West Coast hasn't picked up on it yet. We will. We will. I'm on the West Coast. West Coast is coming. We're going to be balls in. Sorry. We're going to be all the way in on the Long Island serial killer. So pay attention and get in early and get educated, because it's going to be a big, big ride. Thank you all for coming tonight. Buy some merch at devilsadvocates.info on your way out, because again, it's once those run out, I'm out for a while until I buy another batch. So take it easy, everyone. Have a good night. See you tomorrow on Murder Metal Mayhem. We call it Devil's Mayhem. It's the mashup between Devil's Advocates and Murder Metal Mayhem. We call it Devil's Mayhem. And it's the first time I'm going to be talking to A.R. Hayes, a friend of Murder Metal Mayhem, Pete Altieri, for quite some time. It's going to be the first time that A.R. and I are going to ever share a screen together. First time we're going to ever say a word to each other. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic. Guys, check it out and take it easy. Have a good night.